As we prepare to celebrate the birth of our Savior, we must realize that we do so because of his death and resurrection. See, billions of people have been born, and billions of people have died, but only a few people have come back to life after they have died. In the Old Testament, we have the widow's son in 1 Kings chapter 17. In the New Testament, we have examples such as the ruler of the synagogue, Jairus, his daughter in Mark chapter 5, or we have probably most famously Lazarus in John chapter 11. But for each of those situations, each of them was brought back to death, but they all died again. And so we might say that they were resuscitated or that they were revived. In fact, the term for this is revivification, that they underwent revivification. That is, they did live and die, and they came back to life, but they also experienced a second death. Well, over the past few weeks, I've been sharing about the dominion of sin and death. And those were two rulers, sin and death, that were not easily defeated. So from their perspective, from the perspective of sin and death, you need to join, that they needed to join together in order to ensure a complete and total victory. Now, one of my favorite verses in the Bible is from Acts chapter 3. And in verse 15, I really like this verse because of the irony that it presents. I'm just going to read the first few words of it right now. Again, Acts chapter 3:15. And you, this is Peter preaching, you killed the author of life. Now, Peter is laying the blame on the people for the death of Jesus. But ultimately, the victor in killing Jesus was not the Romans who carried out the killing. It was not the Jews who asked for the killing, who demanded the killing. It was really death itself. If you were death, what better way to win the ultimate victory with your partner sin than by killing the author of life? But Acts 3:15 does not end where I stopped just a moment ago. So let me now back up to verse 14 and read verse 14 and all the way through 15, because it really begins 15 really begins in the middle of a sentence. Verse 14, but you denied the holy and righteous one and asked for a murderer to be granted to you. And you killed the author of life whom God raised from the dead. To this we are witnesses. In chess, the most important piece is the king. In this particular set, we have the king here, and really this is the emperor. This is Julius Caesar. My dad played chess when he was alive. He liked to play chess, and I played some when I was younger, especially growing up with him and stuff. And one of the chess sets that he had, I think maybe the only chess set he had, was this chess set, which goes great with what we're talking about as we're going through Romans. And the chess set here is based upon Rome between 264 BC to 63 AD, and it identifies the various pieces, and the king in each of these is Julius Caesar, the first emperor of Rome. But the king, represented by Caesar here, is the most important piece. Not the most powerful piece. The most powerful piece is the queen, because she can move the maximum number of spaces and in any direction, whereas the king can only move one space at a time. But if you capture the king, the game is over. Well, I know it's kind of odd to look at the board this way, so let me just kind of turn it to you so you might be looking at it from a straight-on perspective, and I'll kind of give you all perspective. We have a couple of bishops here, we have a couple of rooks and a couple of pawns around this king, and then continuing to slide it around from the other direction, we have the knight, we have a couple of pawns here, and a rook protecting the king on this side. And see, as I look at this, I'm thinking if I'm the person, and let's say that this opponent here has just moved their bishop to here, they will have put my king in check. As bishops move, it would just be a diagonal move to take out my king in the next. Now, the rules of Chess would say that I must protect my king or the game is over. And if I move it a couple of different directions, I can still lose. But if I move it back, I am now protected. But my point in showing you this chess setup, and this had to be a perfect chess setup because this what I'm about to show you cannot happen very often in very many different sequences. But this opponent is going to represent sin and death. And this king is going to represent Jesus. And when sin and death were able to put themselves in a position to destroy the author of life, to win the game, to win the battle, to end everything, it looked like it was over. It looked like everything was about to end for the king. In fact, indeed, he died. But one of the ways that you can also protect your king is not just to move your king, but to move another piece in position of your king. And so to do that, I take my knight here and I move it, and the way a knight moves is in an L shape, and so I move it a couple over and one back, and now indeed my king is protected from this bishop, and if the bishop wants to put me in check again, he can do so by taking my knight. The problem is, and this is why this setup is so unique, the problem is in moving my knight out, into position to protect my king, I've also moved him out of position from blocking my approach to his king. And now, hopefully you can see this clearly. Let me just turn it. This rook, if you don't know anything about chess, I'm giving you a little bit of an overview here. This rook has a straight path to the king. So, again, the customary saying that he would have said check and put me in harm's way for my game to be over. But by protecting my king, I have actually accomplished putting him in checkmate. His king can only move one, and it can move this way, but it's blocked. It can move this way, but it's blocked. He can move this way, but it's blocked. He can move this way, and it's blocked. And any of those moves, if it was not blocked, would protect him. But the only move that he can make is forward, and he is still in the line of the rook, in which case that king is dead. So how does this apply to what I'm saying? Maybe you've already figured this out, but if I go back to here, when sin and death moved their bishop into place so that they would put the author of life, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the one whose birth we are about to celebrate, when they put him in jeopardy, God had one move to make. And in doing so, he turned the check against Jesus into a checkmate against the enemy. That is the victory that God offers us. We are not bound to lose. We are not bound. We are not destined to lose. God always has one more move. And the move he made from the cross, the check, to the resurrection, the checkmate. Well, that's why you and I can stand here in joy today.